Work-life balance. It's at the top of everybody's list of desirable career benefits. Now, the Naveen Jindal School of Management offers students help on how to plan for this in their own lives. A podcast, formerly called the Yet Another MBA GOAT podcast, greatest of all time, naturally, has been rebranded as Between Business and Life. An MBA student today, a balanced professional tomorrow. It's another way that the Jindal School seeks to prepare students to become effective leaders in their future roles. The podcast offers new episodes monthly, featuring thought leaders who have achieved success in their careers, as well as an excellent work-life balance. Each episode is designed to equip students with the knowledge of business trends while inspiring them to manage both business and life. Now here's Lisa Shatz, Assistant Dean for the MBA programs at the Jindal School. Take it away, Lisa. Guys, let me start off this episode with a quick overview about our podcast New Direction. In the past, we have focused fully on alums who have something to share about their experience through the program. But what we've realized is our alums and UT Dallas community members have so much expertise and knowledge and are really thought leaders in their industries. And so we are making a shift to focus on their expertise and help them educate our listeners on areas of interest in business. Those trending topics like cryptocurrency and blockchain and all of the things that our students, professionals, alums are all having to deal with every day. So we hope we can help make you just a little bit smarter in what you do, and then also focusing on not just business, but life. And the reason is that this new generation has just been amazing at wanting it all, and good for them. Focusing on just not being successful, but also having that other side. In the old days, a lot of people gave up being well-rounded, being interesting, having different things other than their career. So this is really focusing on people who have figured out how to have both. And so we're going to start off today with Chris Hanebeck, who is founder and CEO of Truckl. So in addition to running a company, Chris is also engaged in being a faculty member at another institution, but also through UT Dallas, involved with our supply chain students, mentoring MBA students, and coming here to talk to me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So the topic of the day is using blockchain within supply chain. And from what I understand, it is something that is rarely, if almost ever, done. This is kind of something that's been talked about for ages, because I remember years ago hearing that that's the optimal place to kind of use blockchain. And yet, with the exception of your company, hasn't been done a whole lot. So give us an overview of exactly what your company does.
Yeah, thank you. So I think absolutely, blockchain is a very new technology. It's been used some in between 2017 and maybe now, but mostly for trials, pilots, and things like that. Truckl is a company that makes it very, very easy to monitor and manage freight. We provide what's called supply chain visibility, a transparency about a process that's shared between many different parties. Fundamentally, the problem we solve is that there are a lot of different parties in a supply chain, between a recipient of freight and a manufacturer and a 3PL and a broker, dispatcher, transportation company, driver, and so on. In import, for example, it could be many more. And these parties do not have a way to collaborate with one another. We provide technology that allows that to happen. And then we use blockchain on the back end to make sure that everybody has a document of what has happened.
So when you say you use it on the back end, so let's put myself in the driver's seat. I'm the truck driver, and I am leaving with trucks of a product for one of your clients. What do I do? Do I go somewhere into a dashboard? Do I scan something? Do I enter it? And who else sees that?
Fundamentally, the way we work is that transactions are a load, as you call it in freight transport. A load is set up on at a 3PL or maybe a manufacturer. They go into a cloud application where they enter the data, mostly through an API or some sort of interface. And then everybody who's part of the load, everybody who has something to do with it, would have their own dashboard where they see the same information. The driver, which is you, then uses a mobile application to basically collect data from the road, and that then, of course, is put into every one of those dashboards. So you would arrive at a pickup location, you would take photos of the freight, you would get a signature from a warehouse manager, you could provide your times, when did I arrive, when did I depart, things like that. And then, of course, we track you as you go. There could be checklists, there could be IoT devices that are integrated, things of that nature. And that information then all flows to all the dashboards. Everybody who has access to a dashboard sees it. And so you provide a tremendous amount of value to the overall chain.
So immediately that's communicated to everyone. So I'm waiting for that product. Yeah. And if I'm like, where is my product? Yeah. I don't have to call someone at the company that's providing me that. I just look on the dashboard and see where that is.
That's exactly right.
And so this blockchain is set up for all those constituents in this specific transaction. So, say I'm building cars in California and I have a company that's sending me mirrors and I can see theirs. Do I have a separate blockchain for the people sending me tires, or are they on the same blockchain?
Yeah.
And basically, I'm the perfect person to be interviewing you and asking these questions because I know nothing about supply chain and blockchain. So from the very, very basic, is that all one blockchain?
That's a really good question. When we look at blockchain, let's maybe take a step back and maybe at least talk a little bit about what it is. A blockchain fundamentally is just an immutable ledger. What happens on the blockchain stays on the blockchain. Mm-hmm. And so you can use it for anything you like. If there are public blockchains which are available to everybody. For example, when somebody uses Bitcoin or Ether or Ripple in a financial transaction, that is put on a public blockchain because we want everybody to see that. Mm-hmm. There's a second type, which is a private blockchain that can be permissioned or permissionless, but where access in some form is governed. And typically in supply chain, you don't want to share information about how many tires you've shipped to Mountain View to, a certain electric vehicle manufacturer. You don't want to share that with the world. Right. And you also have to keep in mind there's a security implication. If you're shipping gold from Texas to Mountain View, you don't want to let the thieves know in advance where it's going to be. So there's some confidentiality that's required, but fundamentally you have a private blockchain, and now with a private chain you get to decide who sees what. Some of the information, like a bill of lading, everybody who is inside of the process should see. But then other things like rate confirmations, you and I agreeing on this is how much you pay, or this is how much I pay you for driving from Texas to California. That is nobody else's business. So it's only available to the two of us.
And certainly not the other drivers that you might be paying less.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Or telling you what I'm being paid for your drive, since I'm taking a 10% cut of it as well.
Right. So there is I hate to use the word tedious. There is a complicated process when you set this up in making sure that you're keeping certain things confidential, but having it open enough to still serve the purpose of having an open ledger.
Yes. You have the ability to leverage the principles of blockchain in a way that allows you to still use it in a less than fully public form. When you think about it, what makes a blockchain immutable is the fact that it is really, really hard to take anything off the blockchain. You hash information in regular intervals, which means you create an abstraction in usually 128 characters that says, here's a document, for example. I can represent that through a hash algorithm that then becomes basically the proof that this document exists, and also the proof that the document hasn't changed. And if I were to hash my resume and I give it to you, and then 2 months later I decide, well, wait a second, I really should have been president of the United States. That sounds so good, right? And so I add that to it, and then I give you another resume. And we wrote the original resume to the blockchain. You could take a hash and check whether the original document and the one I just gave you are the same. If they are, then I haven't changed anything. I'm honest. If I've changed even a comma, it would be, the result, the hash would be completely different. And thus I would have, I would know that something has changed. That's fundamentally one way of leveraging blockchain in supply chain, is that we take at Truckl, for example, we take the every information about your drive, everything, every document you used, every dot on a map, every signature you got, every photo and so on. And we put all that in one document, and then we create an abstraction using a hash. And then that abstraction is written to the blockchain. Somebody later comes and says, "Oh, Chris, Lisa was supposed to give me 14 pallets. She only got 12. What's going on?" Then I can basically go back to the documentation and say, well, no. Lisa actually took a photo. There's 14 pallets on your dock. Good luck with your insurance. As opposed to everybody having to decide who now gets to pay for the 2 pallets that are missing.
So if changes are made to the blockchain, then this process only works if every change is being watched by everybody involved in that transaction.
You can't change the blockchain itself. What you can do is and this actually becomes its own problem. It's as soon as you write something that is untrue on the blockchain, it is documented. Mm-hmm. And you typically have a second entry that references and corrects the first entry. The way it works is, think about it as if you take a sheet of paper. And now, let's say Bitcoin. It's obviously we would use it for crypto transactions. Mm-hmm. But so for 10 minutes, everybody in the world now that exchanges Bitcoin in one way or another will write that onto that sheet of paper. After 10 minutes, that sheet is full. We now say, okay, we close that sheet. It's called one block. Mm-hmm. And we now create a hash for that sheet, which documents all the information on it. Then we take a new sheet of paper, and the first thing we write on it is the hash from the first sheet.
Okay.
And then we start writing information about Bitcoin transaction for 10 minutes. We close that. Now we have a second block. We hash that second block and write it on a third. So that's why it's called blockchain, because ultimately in the second block, you have an immutable proof that about the contents of the first block. If I change anything in the first block, the hash that I wrote to the second block wouldn't work. And that's why you call it a blockchain, right? Because you literally chain the blocks together using these hash algorithms. And so it's once you write something on it, you can never take it off. The other piece is that it's distributed. Bitcoin blockchain is on 10,000, maybe thousands of computers. So every time you want to change something, you would have to change it in 10,000 places. Or that's not impossible, but it's very implausible. It would take $500 million to really do an attack on the blockchain once something has been on there, say, for an hour.
Which makes it secure if somebody tries to change something that's true. But what about mistakes? I mean, mistakes happen.
Yes.
So how do you adjust for those mistakes?
You create a second entry that calls out the mistake, that makes a reference to the block where the mistake happened. Every transaction has a transaction number, and so you reference that and you say, hey, I was under the mistaken impression, blah, blah, blah. Here's what it really is. So
seems to be working well. Yeah. Why are more people not using this technology for supply chain right now?
That's a really, really good question. Ultimately, there are a couple of reasons. One is that we haven't yet found enough really smart use cases for it. It's a lot of people started out, and there was in 2017, 2018, there were a lot of snake oil salesmen in the industry. A lot of them that ran ICOs, collected tens of millions of dollars, and then nothing ever came out of that. And mostly small investors got hurt, unfortunately. The way it's been working since is that people have tried to bring a lot of different parties together. There was a company, Maersk, one of the largest shipping companies, steamship lines in the world. They teamed up with IBM and said, we're going to create a blockchain for ocean bill of ladings. And, we have X%, 8%, 7% of world trade in ocean shipping. So we're going to put all of our bill of ladings on, and then everybody else will too. However, when everybody else came to the party, they looked at it and said, well, you're a competitor, right? You want me to give you my information on your blockchain. And, what does that do to our competitive dynamic, right? Can I see yours? No, that's interesting. You can see mine, but I can't see. And so basically, whenever you have this situation where you're trying to bring a lot of different people to the table, it's very, very hard to make it work. And that's what happened with Miller, Maersk, and IBM. They created an entity called TradeLens. It consumed millions of dollars. It never went anywhere simply because they could not get the industry to adopt. It was too difficult. So that's part of it, is that every time you need a lot of people involved, it's very, very hard. Part of it is also that there's still a big misconception. People think of blockchain as crypto, which it's not. People think of it as a database, which it's not. And fundamentally, with every technology you can think of, if you start paving the cow path, it's never going to work. If I take a pencil and a paper and I start writing, and then I use a computer in the same way, where instead of deleting things in my word processor, I'll start scratching things out and writing stuff over them. That's when I'm not really efficient. The computer didn't actually do anything for me.
Right.
And the same is true here, that we've seen very little in terms of people really understanding, or people thinking about what can I do that's never been done before on blockchain. And then going from there to, well, how can I enable a new business model? To give you one example, in education, what if you would put every diploma on the blockchain? It's, first of all, if you just put the diploma on, we're paving the cow path. We're just making it a more expensive diploma.
Right.
That's all we're doing. But what if you could take details about the courses that students take? You could take details about exams that they passed, assignments that they did, about strengths and weaknesses that their educators thought they have, or saw in them.
Yeah.
What if you could take all of that and put that on a blockchain? And we give the students now a secure digital wallet where they actually maintain and govern data about themselves. That would be really interesting. And, now I can actually get to a new business model.
Yeah. And it is interesting that you bring that up, because the last conference I went to, that is exactly, we had a session where we're kind of looking futuristically at the future of graduate management education. And we came up with exactly that each student would have not a diploma at all, but really just a conglomerate of skills that they've obtained in different ways. And everyone can see everybody's. And you can go out to the blockchain and you can say, these are the skills I want. And you can pull the students that are good at a certain skill. They have a certain software. They can handle a certain amount of data. They've proven through Microsoft or LinkedIn or whatever. And they would have this open information for anybody to download. Trucking, education, I guess it works with anything, right?
It works with anything. I mean, when you think about it, where it becomes really new is if now, let's say an employer wants to find somebody, to take myself as an example, who speaks fluent German, speaks fluent English, or somewhat broken English, who's got certain educational background, has certain professional experience. This record on the blockchain would live throughout your life. It would start, in elementary school and literally go through until the day you pass. And so somebody could now actually run an anonymous search and say, here are 3 things that I need them, or 5 things, or 12. They need to have worked in a financial services company at one point. They need to have at least 8 years of management consulting. They have to have lived in Asia for 2 years, et cetera, et cetera. Where suddenly there's only 4 or 5 people in the world that have that.
Right.
And now, of course, the algorithm can go and say, well, Lisa, you're one of them. Why don't, would you like us to provide your name and contact to this company that's looking for someone just like you?
Right.
And now it becomes really interesting, right? Because we're going from a almost no fidelity in what does a person actually do as a professional to an infinite fidelity of, well, Chris is really good with this and this and this, and he's actually not good at all in this and this and this. Right. And so you're ultimately, the idea is that you help people to be much more much more accessible. But to lift the veil around, well, when I hire somebody, I have no idea what I'm getting.
Right.
No idea. I hire people to the best of my ability. I employ them for 90 days, and then I see. Then I really know what I've got.
Well, hopefully a lot of our listeners aren't with executive search firms who just heard how their job will be unnecessary sometime in the future when we go fully blockchain. So let's talk about how much more efficiency you're getting. So you wrote in an article that 1/3 of all shipments, at least I think you were talking about in the trucking industry, have some problem in shipping. Yeah. What kind of increase do you see in as far as like how smooth those things run today, and what do you see in the future? Like when all shipping companies are using this kind of technology and everything is really as advanced as what you're getting to, what do you see it looking like then?
Yeah, it's a great question. This goes back to when I started Truckl in 2018. I looked at this kind of disconnected nature in supply chains that people weren't working with one another. They weren't willing to collaborate. A lot of times they don't even trust each other. At the same time, you leave a lot of value on the table. We did a study, for example, with a material sciences company, a global business, $7 billion. They have about 600 shipments by truck in the US every day. And about 20%, 120 drivers are late every day. Every time a driver is late, it's a pinball machine. The ball keeps zigzagging from left and right and up and down. Right. You have 16 calls, conversations, and emails every time a driver is late. And it's not just between companies. It's at the receiving end, the manufacturing manager calling the warehouse, "Hey guys, have you seen my shipment? I'm manufacturing in an hour." Then the warehouse saying, No, I don't know. They're coming straight to the line. What do you want me to do? Call supply chain. He calls supply chain, blah, blah, blah. Supply chain says, "Well, are you kidding me? I'm on the 40, but what do you want me to do?" Call procurement. And so the point is these calls just pinball, zigzag through the organization and then from organization to organization. 16 calls, conversations, and emails every time a driver is late. Who pays for that? It's you and me at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We pay for it because we buy the products. The products are fully costed. The cost, of course, is rolled into that. So all the efficiency that we have is paid by us as consumers. And ultimately, that's what we're after, is we're trying to bring people to a more, to the next level of efficiency. Companies for the last 30, 40 years at least, since re-engineering the corporation, 1989, Hammer and Champion, at least since then, probably mid-70s, have had this focus on, I need to be better, and I'm going to be lean, and I'm going to be with perfect quality and all these different things. But nobody yet has looked into how does that actually apply between companies. And that's exactly where we're coming in. My vision ultimately is that we have to see it in parallel to what's going on right now in engineering. And specifically with autonomous vehicles and so on. We will come to a point where we have autonomous supply chains, where every piece of the physical movement of goods is autonomous. And when that happens, you're going to have an automation of back-end processes as well, which is where blockchain comes in. So ultimately, I see in 5 or 10 years that we're going to see a lot of automated steps in a currently very manual.
This episode is brought to you by the UT Dallas MBA programs, top-ranked nationally and in Texas. The UT Dallas MBA combines a robust core with 13 concentrations. You have an option to add a second master's degree. Your choices for that include 5 STEM designated programs. The MBA program has full-time, part-time, online, and other formats. They give you flexibility to fit your MBA education into your busy schedule. The skills and training you will receive are exactly what top employers are looking for. For more information, visit us online at mba.utdallas.edu.
So today, the clients that you have, what percentage increase in efficiency do you think they've gained through Truckl?
It depends. It depends on not just the company, the industry, the stage in the industry, but also on their willingness to use it. But we've seen, for example, in early users, dispatchers were saving 1 to 2 hours a day. Because ultimately, when you look at it in a supply chain, it's a relay race. It's a game of telegraph. You just whisper in the next person's ear, they whisper in the next person's ear, and so on. And it always takes two people to whisper, right? One to receive and one to send. And so there's a tremendous amount of just completely nonsensical information. If we were in a group of 5, me telling someone else that, I have a question for you, that someone else telling someone else, telling someone else, telling you. That's what it is, rather than, why don't we just talk? And that's exactly what we're trying to achieve, is we're trying to get everybody to just talk to one another.
So in looking at the articles that you've published that I've been kind of scouring in preparation for this, you talk about other technology companies as well. Viscom was one, Aerotech was one, and it seems like your technology is dependent on other technologies. So what technologies are out there that are enabling you to do what you do, and what's not out there that you still need to be out there?
Yeah. Very interesting. I think, first of all, yes, we rely on a lot of enabling technology that begins with us programming on AWS's cloud, using AWS development tools, things of that nature. It continues with using Apple and Google as 2 mobile platforms, Android or iOS. And so we're developing mobile apps for drivers and potentially other workers as well, warehouse workers, office workers that rely on these mobile apps. On top of that, there's a tremendous amount of applications, software that we can interface into. For example, we've designed a solution that leverages RFID in a smart way. Where a truck drives into a gate, they pick up raw materials. Today, there's a person on a scale. The truck needs to go on the scale, needs to be empty when it's weighed. Then it goes to a filling station where they put commodities in it. It comes back around its weight again. And then the truck drives off. And now we know how much was shipped. There's a couple of problems in that process. One, I need a lot of people. 2, I won't know what my load is. I won't have a bill of lading or a manifest or even an invoice until the truck has been loaded, because I have no idea how much they put on there. Right, until they actually do it. And so there's a lot of actually also legal ramification, but ultimately it's what happened was the drivers would just scribble the weights, empty weight and gross weight on a piece of paper, and the scale attendant would sign off on it. At the end of the day, 180 drivers went to an office, gave that stack of paper to a clerk who would then transcribe it. 7 to 9 months, 7 to 11 months in some cases later, they got a bill of lading and an invoice. And of course, there was a lot of finger pointing, a lot of, whatever, right?
And figuring out if there was something off, what happened 7 months ago.
Yes, that's never going to happen. And so fundamentally what we did was we just put an RFID reader next to the scale, connected the scale connected into it with a cable. There's no more scale attendant. The driver drives up. We read an RFID tag on the truck. We take the weight of the truck. The driver goes off, never leaves the cab, goes off, gets loaded, comes around, process repeats. In less than 30 seconds now, the bill of lading is automatically created and added to everyone's dashboard. An invoice is created, added to everyone's dashboard, and so on. We don't need the scale attendants anymore. There's no person in the back office transcribing stuff. And the data is actually available when the truck leaves the facility and starts driving. So this is a very simple solution, but it's an example of where, there's a lot of technology like that comes into play.
So everything is immediate, everything is open, and everything is communicated to a wider audience. Yeah. So it all sounds good. So as you know, I'm an assistant dean for MBA programs here at UT Dallas. So I'm always looking for, how is this helping my students? Some of them will be listening to this. What would you tell supply chain students about the future? They will want to be knowledgeable and ready to take this to the next level, to the things that are happening now. So where do I send them? What do I tell them to do?
Yeah, very good. I think if you're studying supply chain today, don't expect to become a forklift driver. Don't expect to become a material handler. Don't expect potentially to become a truck driver. Right? You're going to have to be an information worker. The best thing to do is prepare as much as possible, look at trends in AI, in machine learning, in certainly autonomy. That's trucks, that's drones, that's material handling equipment, that's bipeds, you name it, right? And all these technologies are driving towards a single point at the end, which is that some parts of some supply chains will be fully autonomous. Products rolling off the shelf, a robot takes them, puts them into a transport container, an autonomous forklift takes them, drives them to a launching pad where a volocopter drone picks them up and flies them, to a switchyard where they're loaded onto an autonomous truck. And, that goes from A to B. The process reverses, and then ultimately you have a beehive. You have 250 drones flying through the roof every 15 minutes and delivering packages to homes. And not a human hand in that process potentially. It's not going to be for everything. It's not going to work when you ship lawnmowers. It's going to hurt when they release it.
When you drop a lawnmower on my lawn.
Yeah, on your front porch. You don't want to be standing there. But it is going to work for things like groceries, books, smaller items, and where fundamentally now the next step, again, not paving the cow path, right? The next step is that you're going to see then obviously manufacturing change along. A lot more flexible manufacturing. I'm doing, one item now, another item next, and so on. You're also going to see the back office, the administrative parts automate. That's where blockchain comes in. You're not going to have a whole room full of people working with invoices, manifests, bills of ladings, and route confirmations and all that stuff. That's going to be a piece of software that runs a smart contract that's connected to a blockchain. When the truck picks up the goods on time, I'm going to pay 20% of my dues to the owner of that autonomous vehicle. The vehicle hits certain milestones. I pay, let's say on 3 milestones along the route, I'll pay another 10% each. When it gets to its destination, I pay 20% again and then 30% after I've checked the quality of the goods. So and all automated. There's nothing in between. There's no human in between. You just get GPS signals from the truck that serve as so-called oracles in blockchain language that then trigger a smart contract, which is a piece of software that just executes a process. And that all happens on blockchain. And so that's, look into those things would be my recommendation if you're a student in supply chain manufacturing operations.
So you certainly see pieces of that already, right? You see it in Walmart where there's things getting automatically boxed up in their manufacturing, but then there's a stop, there's human touch to get it to the next stage. That might have so it's really connecting all of those. And you certainly see it in, ordering products from Amazon or ordering your Uber where everybody's looking at the same app. So it's just kind of getting to the point, and where I want it to get is where I can order my groceries and I have some kind of box on the outside of my house, and when I get home, it's just there. It's in the refrigerator that opens from the outside or the inside or something. So do you think I'll see that in my lifetime?
I think the refrigerator was built about 23 years ago.
Oh, yeah?
People tried it in California. It was too costly. And ultimately, people couldn't figure out how to move a refrigerator next to an outside wall. That's really difficult. It's usually, facing some inside wall. But fundamentally something like that. I think, when you look at drones, for example, we're seeing drone deliveries becoming more prevalent. Walmart doing it in Virginia. Amazon is trying it out in a couple of places. Other companies are. A company like Zipline has already flown 25 million miles with last mile deliveries on drones.
Wow.
They just did it in Africa, where, they're shipping medication to remote villages, which does a very good service, but they also collected a tremendous amount of information about flight operations. And so as this is coming, I could envision that you see, for example, houses being built with a chute. The drone lands, and then there's a slide that your package goes down on, right, onto the kitchen table. Walmart experimented with, I think they still do actually, with giving access to your house to Walmart employees. And Personally, I would find that very creepy. I wouldn't want someone I've never met before to be in my home.
Yeah.
Amazon has been experimenting with it, especially with their doorbell, with garage access and things like that. But fundamentally, I think what's going to happen is today, legally, you have to stop at 11 feet. The drone can't go any closer because obviously you're operating an airborne lawnmower in a way,
right?
And so you don't want to hurt anybody or pets or children or whatever it might be. You also don't want to give your hedge a haircut.
Yeah.
So they stay at 11 feet, and you have to lower stuff down on a cord usually. But in the future, I could see that there's something that allows you to just drop the packages and then they automatically slide on your kitchen table. You come home and everything is there.
So much opportunity and moving so fast. And I guess they'll need a lot of smart students to make all that happen. So that's good for us.
Yes, absolutely. The more qualifications you have, the better you're going to be equipped for that environment.
Yeah.
For sure.
So we're going to make a switch, and the purpose of the podcast is really talk about business and life. And so we highlight people who are extremely successful like yourself, but if you have no life, lots of people can be successful. We want to learn how to do it from people who have a successful personal life as well, which, of course, to the new generation is everything. And they've been much more savvy than we were about drawing those lines. So let's talk about all of the things you're able to do in your personal life despite, having, all of the success on your professional side. So you obviously run a company. You contribute a lot, which is how you and I were introduced at universities, both teaching and just participating in various programs, coming in, speaking to students. I heard you say today that you're bringing students to visit a company. You ran a nonprofit on the side for 10 years. You are married with children. You're interested in photography. So give some words of wisdom on how to pack that all into one life.
Yeah, I wish I had, in a way. I don't know that I have a, patented recipe, but what I can tell you is, first of all, it's never perfect, and you have to be good at making the right calls, at prioritizing different things at different times. When your children are young, you want to focus on your children. To give you an example, I was working in management consulting at the time when my two children were somewhere between, born and say 7, 8, right? And somewhere in between there. And one of the things I did was I started working early in the day, worked through the day, but then at 5 I dropped the pen, and between 5 and 8 we spent time together. We cooked together, we played games, we had fun, and whatever I could. And then at 8 I went back to my desk and I worked until midnight, and then, the next day repeat. So you have to make time for the things that are really important. Sometimes that means you leave other things on the table. But at the end of the day, you're never it's a zero-sum game. You're never going to get everything in. And for me, it's always been that, first of all, follow what you love and do what you love. The financial aspect and the success and all that will come. But if you don't love something, you're never going to be successful. Not to the level you could be. If you're successful at something you don't love, think about how successful you could have been at something that you do love, right? Yep. So I think that's a really important point. I think it's important to have balance. You're absolutely right. Do you want to be the next CEO of Walmart? Of course you can. There's a lot of people who can. But are you willing to make the sacrifices to get there, to do all the things that are necessary? The all-nighters, the weekends, the missed vacations, and everything in between. You have to be committed, and senior executives have done that to get to the job. I'd be very suspect if they haven't.
Right.
They're either magicians or they were promoted for other reasons than competence. But ultimately, it's possible, of course, and you should strive for that. But fundamentally, it's really, really hard. find a level where it works for you. Right, and where you think of it as different buckets. You know, you have a personal life bucket, you have a family bucket, a love bucket, you have a work bucket, you have a hobbies bucket, or multiple. Think about where can you land where all those are reasonably full.
Right.
And that's there's no trick to it. I find. I work best. For me, teaching is a way to give back. Charity is a way to give back. But it's ultimately it creates balance. I need that balance. I can't just go and do something for me all day and then go home and say, okay, I'm done.
Right.
See what those balances are for you.
Did you always have that wisdom, or when you were young, were you ridiculous like I was and just worked all the time?
Yeah. Absolutely. And, when you start out, you still have so much to prove. Not always to someone else, but also to yourself. You know, I work twice as hard than everybody else because I really needed to prove to myself that I was worthy of even graduating college, and that I was worthy of having the job they gave me. And so you have the enthusiasm, you have the energy, so why not? It's in a way, and that's actually not necessarily, I don't see this as a negative. I think, first of all, it allows you to achieve a lot in a short period of time, get a lot of learnings in. So I wouldn't necessarily say that you made a mistake by working really hard. I think if your priorities were right and if you had a long-term goal, then probably you did something really, really good. Which is, you know what? While I have the gas in the tank, I'm going. I'm running at 100 miles an hour all the time. Later on, you can still sit back and relax, right? Yeah. And take it easier. So I think from that perspective, I think if you have the right goals and if you're striving to achieve the right thing for you, you're the only one who can tell you what that is, then absolutely go for it.
So you have definitely gotten to where you wanted to be, balanced, and with a successful career. Have you done everything you want, or is there anything left on the list?
Oh, there's lots left. I think I'm never done, and I don't necessarily think about things in a start, stop, complete type setting, because everything is a flow, right? Everything is a river. I'm not done. I don't think I'll ever be. I would love to write a book. I would love to start a new career. I would love to become a professional chef, even though I'm in my mid-50s now. But I could see myself going to a culinary institute and actually learning that for a year and then starting by peeling potatoes in a kitchen for 8 hours a day. Absolutely. So it's at the end of the day, you'll know when the time comes that you make a change to make that change. And whatever that is, the only thing that matters is does it or does it not make you happy?
You and I have similar goals. It's funny you said that about being a chef, because we say it in jest, but it's really not in jest. My goal when I'm retired is to work in a bakery.
Yeah.
I always wanted to work in a bakery. I bake all the time. I don't know necessarily that I'll want to work full time and do that all the time, but my goals for my next career will be all about fun. It'll be all about just doing something that I want to do when I don't have to worry about promotions, money, any of that kind of stuff. So if you ever are a chef, you know where to get your baked goods.
Well, yes, absolutely. I would love to. I would love to try.
Okay, well, thank you so much. This was Chris Hanebeck talking about Truckl, and thanks for sharing some time with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Between Business and Life, brought to you by the UT Dallas MBA programs. To learn more about how an MBA from the Naveen Jindal School of Management can help you develop the skills and connections you need to live your best life, visit us online at mba.utdallas.edu.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Between Business and Life. Join us online at betweenbusinessandlife.com to find episode notes, links, and more. Be sure to subscribe to Between Business and Life on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcasting app. If you like what you hear, please leave a 5-star review. That will help spread the word about the podcast and UT Dallas MBA programs. To learn more about the UT Dallas MBA programs, visit us online at mba.utdallas.edu.